Thank you. So let's welcome Stephen and Kavi. Over to you.
Thank you, May. Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and so lovely to be with everyone. And we've got a real smorgasbord of coming from so many different countries. So it's always such a pleasure to be in your midst. And so my name is Stephen Barkley, and I work for Flint Rock Consulting. Kavi and I have been facilitating together for about 8 or 9 years, and there's been a common red thread throughout our journey. And from the very beginning, when we first became friendly, we were exploring this whole thing that we were learning in these IAF workshops, and we were thinking, well, what's the implications of what we're learning here for our day-to-day living and our day-to-day lives? So we really had our antennas up when we were out interacting and just watching and witnessing facilitation happening naturally in people's lives without having the label of being a facilitator. So we're here today just to have a conversation with you. And what we find in these workshops, that we love to have them because we learn so much. We learn so much about the topic. We'll have a certain understanding about the topic, and then it just gets deeper. So really happy to be with you, and over to Kavi.
Thank you, Stephen. It is such a pleasure to be back in the safe hands of another family from all over the world. I keep using the word family and community loosely with IAF because it is exactly that. Always feel a sense of community, a sense of, look, I mean, I can be amongst facilitators and the IAF, and I can just be myself. I can make mistakes, I can talk, and people will correct me, and it's all in the spirit of community and learning and togetherness. And so when May approached and said, look, can you do this workshop? Between me, Stephen, we've never said no to IAF. We said, of course, yes. And then we said, so what do you want us to do? And one of the questions that came was, look, I mean, you guys seem to have written this book and been part of one of the co-authors of the book, the power of facilitation. And one of the chapters is ours, which was about leading a facilitative life. And so why don't you talk about it? And so we then spoke about it and said, look, I mean, instead of talking about it, can we just help people experience what we have in mind? And this is an attempt with that. As always, it's an attempt, it's play, and we'll have fun doing this. And as what Stephen was saying just now, in the book, we have a line, and I got reminded of that, Stephen, which is that there is a facilitative bone in all of us. And it's not restricted just to facilitators, in all of us. The whole of humanity has a facilitative bone. And when we manage to utilize that bone, the world will be a much better place. That's where we're coming from. And we had this as a hypothesis, and we went about testing. And that's the story of the book. But we'll come to the book towards the end. Before that, we wanted to talk about the genesis of this belief that we had in us. We used to go to IAF events and other events and look at people and say, wow, I mean, this is quite good. And like what Stephen was saying, the question was, must facilitation require post-it notes and charts and stuff? Or is it a way of life? So the central question that we wanted to explain and examine is this. Is facilitation a way of life, or is it limited to a way of livelihood? Does it provide livelihood, or is it a way of life and living? And we being us, we said, okay, we think it's livelihood. And then when we start examining and deepening our own reflections, we just landed up understanding that it's not about livelihood alone. Livelihood is but a small subset of life. And we believe that every one of us on planet Earth as a facilitative bone in them. And that's the chapter all about. Stephen, would you just want to add, amplify, correct me as we move along? And maybe talk about your origin stories for facilitation as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kavi. It's really interesting when you have this lens, and we're conscious that not everybody here may have a facilitation background. They may be new to it. But when I started to have that lens, it gave me a lens to reflect back on moments in my life. And then to say, wow, that was pure facilitation. And one of those moments is a mundane moment. And I had gone to a major department store. There was a time in my life where I wore ties. Don't wear them anymore. And I needed some new ties and some new shirts, etc. And I went into this department store and it was very busy. And this quite a senior looking person came up to me and said, "What would you like?" And I said, "This is what I'm looking for." And then all of a sudden he said, "I need to call over my senior." And he calls over his senior, and his senior was 25, 30 years younger than him. And he was extremely well dressed, and he started to ask me a series of questions about, what were the occasions that I wanted for, what was my type of work. And then he was looking at my complexion and a range of things. And it was really busy. And there was lots of other customers around. And he was actually serving 3 or 4 other customers at the same time. And then all of a sudden, he knew exactly what he wanted. And then he brought members of his team and said, "I want this, I want this, I want that." And off they went. And he was really seeing the bigger picture of the scene. And then he brought a range of different shirts and ties for me. I went in to buy 1 shirt and 1 tie, and I went out with 4 shirts and 4 ties. And this person, I was just stunned how there was such a great sense of confidence in this man, and he was so much younger than everybody else. And that sense of style, that sense of knowledge he had about his job, he just instilled cooperation from others. But the way he did it stays in my memory until this very day. And for me, it was very much how he was engaging with his team and enabling magic to happen. I went in for 1 shirt and 1 tie and came out with 4. And these ordinary moments is what, when we reflect back and think, what is facilitation?
Okay, that's Stephen's story. Now I'm going to introduce you to my first facilitator in life. Okay, maybe some of you would know, but I don't think many of you would know who I think is my first facilitator, who I really admire to date. Okay, so here she comes on screen. I hope you're able to see it. This is my first facilitator. This is my great grandmother. She's my mother's grandmother. I grew up with her, and she took care of me. And when I look back at her, I mean, you will see from her that you see the long years that they have, and that was part of the tradition to grow their years. And one of the reasons why they used to do that was because of jewelry, but the other important reason was it just gave people a sense of you're present to other people. You listen more. And when she used to she was a matriarch in the house, and we had some farms, and I still remember to date how she used to run the farm. She could go around ordering, but that's exactly not what she would do. She would pause and she would ask someone to do something, but still check, what do you think we should do here? And then bring someone else to something and say, do you think we should do this? What do you guys, both of you guys, what do you think we should do now? What do you think next should we do? And at times it used to be frustrating that why is she even asking around with so many people? But that was the way in which she started working, and she used to coach me and counsel me. In those times, these words were abstract words that I now, in hindsight, look back and say this is exactly what she was doing back then. But what she was doing was instilling in me a sense that, look, you can be far better off if we are able to collectively get everybody's understanding on a particular issue than just going about ordering stuff. She could have done that. She never did that. Perhaps that was my earliest understanding of where and how powerful it is to harness group wisdom. And those memories came alive when I was going through some of the pictures from very early times and how she harvested big fields, big landfills, and how she was doing that. Notes from the past helped me connect to how great a facilitator she was, even though she was a completely illiterate lady but full of worldly wisdom. To me, she is my first facilitator in life. And so these are the kind of stories we started piecing together and thinking through the lens of what it makes to be a facilitator. And the point and premise that we have for you is there are far more facilitators around us in family, in life, neighborhoods, everywhere else. Facilitation at its very core means to make it easy. Now, there are facilitators who make groups work and work to do better work in a far more easier way. How do we identify them? What's there in common to all of them? If we draw parallels from their work, how must we incorporate those elements into our work to be able to be better off in this generating livelihood for us? That's the way in which we approach this. Stephen?
Thanks, Kavi. And I think we've got a new hero in your great-grandmother. Thank you for that beautiful story. And as Kavi said, that a key element of our work is with stories. And that's how we draw a sense of shared meaning or a shared understanding about a particular topic. And so today, we're going to be having lots of opportunities to listen and hear your stories so that our understanding of this topic matter becomes deeper and broader. Kavi, are we going to do our what emotions we're keeping?
Yes. You want to go for that?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, all right. So folks, if there is these days, if there is a facilitator event and that happens without Mentimeter, then you all start wondering, is that a facilitator event at all? So here's a Menti for you, and this Menti is going to ask you a very simple question, but there is a root behind this question, which I will tell you immediately after. The code to go after is this. I'm going to put it in the chat window for everybody. It's a very simple chat window. Yes. There's a link. I'm just going to copy the link and I'm going to paste it here as well in case you're going to go straight to the link. So what emotions keep you company now that you've heard context to what we're going to be doing for the rest of the session? What emotions keep you company now? Simple question. And as you go about answering this question, we'll find why we're doing this as we go about doing this.
Everybody finding the link okay?
Yes,
and
yes.
Entering? Great.
I'm seeing responses come in, which is
Great.
Okay, we got 12 responses thus far. All right. In another 10 seconds, we bring the screen up and show you what the responses have been. Yes, and there we go. So that's where the group's emotions are right now. One of the important reason why it's important to connect to emotions is group wisdom is also a function of emotional energy in a group. And therefore, for us, it's important to have a direct linkage to the energy and the emotional energy in a group. So you're looking at emotions, you're looking at what all is coming up from an emotional state, and much of it is also getting stated in cognitive ways, but you're looking at emotions here. Emotions are bridges to reach people. As facilitators, and you look at some of the worldly wise facilitators who don't possibly carry the tag of facilitators, those people will have a knack of tapping into emotions of other people. They'll have a knack of understanding where the other person is in terms of emotion. And that is a supremely important knack, and that's so important for us to be able to understand, and that's one of the angles of what we'll talk about once we cross a few elements here. We'll talk to you about what's central to our work, and there are three things that we'll list. One element is completely about emotions and how emotions are absolutely critical for us to understand as to what's the emotion of the set of people in front of us and what therefore can it contribute to. Now, the moment we have a greater understanding and appreciation of emotions rather than just cognition of what are they talking about, if we understand underlying emotions to those of what's getting discussed, we have a way of connecting what's getting discussed. Now, why are we even talking about this? One is, of course, to understand where is this group. We also say somebody's saying slow, somebody's saying joyful, calm. It's great. We understand where the group is. When we are in front of people, or even in groups like this, it's important for us to keep checking in for sometimes explicitly asking, sometimes checking in for through other means as to what possibly are emotions here, because those are windows to action, not necessarily just moving along a run sheet that we have. Stephen, over to you.
Thank you, Kavi. Yeah, that's really interesting about emotions being bridges. And I guess if emotions are bridges, we see the stories as the bricks in those bridge. And we have this saying, building bridges, breaking walls, one story at a time. And we're just going to invite you into a breakout room for our first opportunity to listen to each other's stories. And we're going to break you up into groups of 3 or 4. And the first question that we just want you to explore, we're going to give you 5 minutes, is what attracted you to this workshop today? What is it in the title that made you invest your time on a Saturday afternoon, on a Saturday evening, wherever you may be? I think there may be people here from the morning. And in those 5 minutes, we're just asking you, what was it that attracted you to this topic? Why are you here today? And so if you could just select one person from within your group who may be a spokesperson, we may not hear from all of the groups, but what are the main themes that emerges from your conversation? Kavi, anything to add there?
No, please, it'd be good to talk with stories. So if you can share a story or two about why you're here, we would really, really love to hear some stories about why you're here. And
Okay.
we'll see how you'll connect it to what we'll get to accomplish by the end of in another hour's time.
Yep. And so I'm going to break out in the breakout rooms, and I can guess what's going to happen in 5 minutes when you automatically come back to the room. I'll have at least 3 or 4 people saying, we hadn't finished. But anyway, do your best shot, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes.
Stephen, would you just want to give more time?
Yeah, we can do that. What do you reckon?
Yep. 7 minutes.
Okay.
Being slightly generous there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the boss has spoken. Great. See you in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
How are we going? We've got somebody, Ravi. Will be assigned to room number 7. How are we going?
Ravi signed from 2 devices, is it?
I'm not sure. How are we going?
There are 3 other people.
Yep. Puri.
Yes.
Puri, you there?
Hi, yes. Good afternoon from Jakarta.
Hi.
Hello.
I've just allocated you to room number 8, so you should get a message. Yolando.
Let me join it.
Yolando, have you received a message? Welcome back. We'll have everybody here in a couple of seconds. Great, thank you. Thank you, welcome back. I hope we didn't catch you mid-conversation, but I'm sure we did. So who would, which group would like to give us the essence of what was the red thread, so to speak, of your conversation about what brought you to today's workshop? Okay, go Anshul. Thank you.
Hi. So in our group, we had a discussion, and all 3 of us shared that common idea of curiosity of what's going to happen, and the title, Facilitative Life. That made us curious that how can we bring facilitation to our life in our day-to-day life. And then while we were sharing our background and the story of our life, we connected somehow, 2 of us connected to our village life and village background. And that made me realize that during those holidays, summer and winter holidays, when I used to go to my village, and the kind of connection that I used to have with the villagers, elders as well as my age, the bonfire and the storytelling happening in the night, that was something I still carry along with me. And I can very well tell that some of the best storytellers I have experienced in my life were those who were sitting there around the bonfire. And it also led us to a situation where I would say now on hindsight that the way people live in village is something which is like, they are not taking life for granted. And it's so much aligned with the nature. And when they are so much aligned with the nature, it's so very natural for them to be in that flow where they are allowing others to be also as they are. And that would, I think, be a facilitative way of living and allowing others to live. That was our thought.
Thank you, Anshel, for your story. Thank you very much. Adhir?
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you so much for the opportunity given here. And I represent breakout room number 3, where we had Vinti as well as Jayati with us. And what attracted us to this workshop, number one, was of course the facilitators. We never wanted to miss out, Kavi and Stephen together. And I have had the occasion of opportunity rather of attending your sessions in the past, and I would never like to miss your session given any day. That is number one. Number two is the curiosity. So ever since I was exposed to facilitation, I could feel the ripple effect of facilitation or the skills of facilitation in the personal space as well. The way we ask questions in the personal space, also has an impact in the way we carry ourselves in the professional space. So it was also intriguing me that why should I restrict facilitation skills only in the professional space of doing workshops and all? Why not we apply it in the personal space, the way we carry ourselves in the families as well. So it will have a big impact in the personal space when we apply. So that is what actually is bringing me here. And that was a big attraction, of the title of this workshop as well to me. Thank you. Back again to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Adhir.
Anything that Vinti you would like to add, or Jayati you would like to add?
If you have anything that you'd like to add, if you could just put it into the chat box. And also we won't get through all of the groups. So if there's anything extra that you'd like to add, if you can put that in the chat. Martina, welcome from Ireland.
Hi. Well, in our group, I think what attracted us was both our own life journey and also livelihood. And it opened up a conversation about facilitation. I think we had Lydia from Indonesia and Latha from India. And Lydia talked about, I wrote it down, collective is more powerful rather than directive. And this is in her work with clients. And that kind of opened up the conversation. Latha talked about collective wisdom and collective intelligence. And generally speaking, this whole life approach and it just opened up we were amazed at what a great conversation we had in just a very short time, and how inspiring the conversation has been so far from both of you, from Kavi and from Stephen. So really delighted to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Martina. Yeah. And so another from Ireland. Fantastic to have the Ireland team represented here. David, over to you.
Oops, there we go. Yes, thanks very much. Yeah, I was in a group with Tita, Michael, and Latha. One of the words that jumped out for me was Tita felt that maybe at some moments she was being unfacilitative in her life, outside of her professional life. So in her community life. So she was, questioning that. Michael said he's still getting to grips with the professional side and the process side of facilitation, and and he's easing himself into the more personal side or of the everyday side of facilitation. Latha, she said, well, you kind of have to be facilitative every day in your life outside of your professional world. And myself, it's not something, it's something I know I should give thought to, but I haven't. In one small way, I've often looked at my daughter and I wonder how I could apply facilitation to her upbringing, but then I didn't want to transform her into some form of, facilitation laboratory or something like that. So it's, yeah, it's the way Freud did with his daughters went horribly wrong, I think. But so that's it. So it's a question I know I should be thinking about, but haven't given it as much thought as I should have.
Thank you, David. Thank you, and Amy. There you go.
Hi. So Eileen, Eddie, and Amy, the 3 A's. We are okay. So one of the reasons why we joined this session was because of Kavi and Stephen. Okay. So we are saying that as a way of life, facilitation is connecting with others and very touched with the emotions and how we continue to grow by learning more from others as a way of life, and as well as we are humble to learn and listen, and being very interested in facilitation. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
And we'll just have one more from Yash, and if anybody else has got anything else that's different from what's said, we'd love to read about that in the chat box. So Yash.
Sure. Thank you, Stephen. So this is my first session with after becoming a member of IAF. So I think that's what got me to attend the session in the first place, because it's my formal introduction to the world. While I've been exposed to facilitation through Kavi for a few years now, and it's only recently that I know it has a name and it has a method and all of that. So that's what got me to the session. With me in the group was Mrunal and Ravi, of course. Ronald said that he's been working with facilitation in the professional space since about 2013, or he's been exposed to that area. And he also believes that in our everyday lives, we engage with so many people around us, and we interact with them, get to know their emotions and all of that. So he realized that in some sense, whether consciously or unconsciously, we're also kind of being facilitators in everyday life. So what got him to the session was the title itself, because it really spoke to him. And unfortunately, I did not get Ravi's point of view because we ran out of time and I also got dropped out of the meeting. So maybe Ravi could kind of ping it on the chat. So yeah, that's how we are here. Thank you very much.
All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so lots of depth and breadth there with the reasons why everybody's coming here. Kavi, was there anything that piqued your interest in particular?
Quite a lot of things. You see, we all come from diverse backgrounds, diverse cultures, but we're all connected. While we're connected on the basis of facilitation, but we're more connected at a deeply human level, is the way I would see it and think of it. And that's what we should go back to, far more than what facilitation as a body of work offers. When we connect to that, the body of work becomes far more fluid, far more easier, and far more in the moment, and far more professional. The challenge with many of us, and I'm speaking from personal experience, is when we focus on the body of facilitative work, we miss out on the foundations of what's brought us here, on what's possible. And we become so, oh, this is the process of doing it. Oh, this is the methodology. This is the sheet. This is the place where we should put this up. But that's not the point. The point is about people in the room. The point is about them having a point of view. And when we harness that, and I love the fact that somebody spoke, sorry about that, somebody spoke about the village. And when we did the work on the book, we went to villages and spoke to them. And we're going to talk to you about some of our findings about what brings about great facilitators and common people. And some of them are absolute illiterate people, quote unquote, who can't read. But they are amazing in just getting people together, getting people to trade off and live together. Now, the reason why facilitation, we are so passionate about facilitation, why it's so important for us is that's what the world needs. Because we have so many constraints in resources. And we need to be facilitative to live together in one planet. We've got no choice there. And we need to do that. And we will need our work. And for that work, harnessing the facilitative bone in each of us is important. And that's the beautiful statements that I heard about the villagers and how they sat under the sun, the bonfires. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about the story. But Stephen, that's what comes back to me. We've got to connect back to that. And some of you may turn around and ask, but why? I can only promise you from personal experience. My experience has been the more I connected to that, more my practice has become far more sophisticated. People come back and ask, you're doing something else more. What do you do? I say, I don't know. I really don't know. But there is something else that's happened because of trying to unearth a facilitative bone that's there deeper within people. Now we'll talk about that in just a bit, but Stephen, over to you, sir.
Something that I want to come back to a little bit later, Kavi, is why we called it a facilitative bone and not a facilitative muscle or something else. So just remind us that we'll come back to that. And as we said before, that emotions are the bridges and stories are the bricks. And we've already started to have an opportunity for all of us to get together and explore why this topic was important through our stories. Now we'd like to, with that understanding that we've started to share with you about facilitation, and that it's not just what's in the workshop and it can be seen in everyday moments of life. In a moment, we're going to again break you into breakout rooms, and we're going to get you to think about, now you have that understanding of facilitation and you've already started to draw out some of those stories, is to think a little bit more of those facilitative moments that you've witnessed. Just as I said with my story at the beginning, as I had more understanding of facilitation, I was able to look back on that moment when I was in the department store and the gentleman and the way he made things happen with respect to my ties and shirts. So we're going to get you to explore that question, is remembering back on moments in your life where you believed there was an element of facilitative or facilitation in those moments. Kavi, any more instructions there?
Thanks, Stephen. It's not necessarily in a formal facilitative room where there was a facilitator called in. In life, where have you experienced facilitation? This is for you to churn your mind a little bit and see and examine, have there been moments outside of a formal room where I have seen facilitation in action? Has somebody been able to bring a set of people together? Has somebody been able to herd and make it easier for some of us? Who is that person? How did it happen? Somebody who didn't carry a tag of, a facilitator. What's that? That's what we're trying to elicit from you. We've shared our story. This is the opportunity for you to get to know each other and also share a few bits and understandings of where you have seen it in action in your worlds. And it's our attempt as well to bring worlds closer to each other.
Thanks, Kavi. So this time your rooms will be a little bit bigger. What do you say, Kavi? About 10 minutes again, or a little bit longer?
I think we should give it a little bit longer if it's a bigger room.
Okay. Yeah. 10.5 minutes. Right. Okay. We'll go for 12. Yeah. So again, if just when you get into your room, identify a spokesperson, but it must be somebody different from who's spoken so far. So we're going to open the rooms and we'll give you about 12 months. We'll give you about 12 minutes. We'll see you in 12 months' time.
I'll have to drop out around November.
That's a story we should talk about.
Yeah.
At least by October. Let's go.
Does anybody have any questions with respect to what we're doing? Everybody clear?
Yes, Stephen, this is Adi from Indonesia,
Yes.
Jakarta.
Yes,
Can
Adi.
you once again just repeat the instruction in general.
Yes, sure. So what we're asking you, with your lens of facilitation and your understanding of it, and from our stories that we gave, is to think of moments in your past where you believed there was an element of facilitation or there was facilitative. And as Kavi said, it doesn't need to have been in a formal workshop sense, in life in general. Is that okay?
Good, great, thanks.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you all in 12 minutes.
And as always, we don't have enough time.
Yeah. Well, I was just honoring David and making sure you all got back before November.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, God. It's snowing now. My Christmas shopping this afternoon. How it flies in.
It's great. And don't you love a good banter happening? Lovely. And so thank you. We're really looking forward to hearing your conversation and what went on in your room. So who would like to be first? Can I say cab off the rank? I mean, that doesn't really work possibly across the world. Who's the first Uber? Right, Michael, looking forward to hearing you.
Hello, everyone. I was in a group with Pusvita, Vinti, and Danny. And we kind of established that most of us had family members who were their initial facilitators. For Pusvita, it was her mom. And she was the one who made her realize that we are a diverse world because for starters, they are from different religions. And she from that learned that we have to accept the different diverse backgrounds that we all come from. Vinti couldn't exactly think of one, but she gave us a few examples. She had a childhood friend whose parents treated them like they were adults. And she always felt like her opinion was valued when she was with them. And that's what that and other similar events like that pushed her into facilitation. And Danny, our Indonesian friend who moved to the UK at the age of 3, was pretty much spoiled by his uncle into the facilitation process. I think I can summarize that. And his uncle prepared him to become a facilitator by just dropping a few facilitation tidbits. And I, for one, had a grandfather who had a massive family, and he was in the King's African Rifles, which fought in World War II. And if you have a big family, you will obviously have some issues. And from those issues is where I think I interacted with him firstly on the facilitation process. So I think that was it for our group mostly. But bottom line is the common denominator was we all had people in our family who pushed us towards the facilitation journey.
Thank you, Michael. And it'd be interesting as you're hearing these stories. What are some of those facilitative skills that you're hearing from those stories? And just populate the chat to keep it going and keep this conversation alive. So who would like to go next? Which group? Last time we had a list of raised hands, and now
I'll go, guys.
Go. Thanks, Anastasia. Sure. And just before you go, just for those people that have arrived just recently, we've asked people to be exploring stories that in their life, say their pre-facilitation life, where they witnessed people being facilitative without being in a workshop or in a workshop type situation. Thank you, Anastasia. Over to you.
Sure. So it seems that the workshop creates for us today the time before and after. Before we came to know that we are facilitators, and after when we realized that there is skill set toolkit called facilitation skills that we can actually use consciously, knowing about that. And different stories came in our group, and all of us are having very different background and experience with facilitation, different years. So at here, for example, he realized that when they helped their 12-year-old daughter to make the choice of which course she'd like to go, they started to, instead of being a traditional Indian parent, they decided to ask, hey, what you'd like to do really there, and what are your choices, and what are you passionate about? And they helped her to make a more informative decision, which she did eventually by herself. That was a facilitation trick of its own. Then we've got Shan, who been for 20 years with facilitation, and he recalls his experience just before joining IAF organization. The way he had the pleasure to work with his boss, who would constantly be would have an ear for the team, and he would ask them, hey guys, how would you like a teamwork to be done really? So he realized, oh, that was facilitation really, what a great facilitative leader he was. When Eddie started his career as a trainer in 1992, he had no idea what facilitation was about. But then in 2006, when he had done one of his most successful graffiti trainings, where 90% of the training people were doing something and only 10% he was talking, he realized that that was kind of a peak of his trainer career, that using these facilitation skills made a great success and better impact. And myself, I'm being a beginner who realized that facilitation skills exist as it is. I keep reflecting around myself, so I'm just walking, talking every single day and spotting facilitation in every single situation around me, whether it's a waiter who is asking me if I need to upsell my burger, whether it's a trainer who is telling me on what would be the sequence. And one important thing to say, since unfortunately facilitation hasn't been recognized as a profession, I wonder how the future for facilitation will look like, since every person in the world can potentially be a good facilitator, then how we can kind of succeed in this profession by telling to the people, hey, I'm a facilitator, and there is a profession like that exists. I wonder if we can tackle on that during the session or something, because otherwise I'm just a facilitator. I do not have a profession. I'm just a facilitator, but I would, which goes perfectly with our theme, but I would love to have it as a profession though. Yeah.
I think we might get to that answer by November, so we'll see how we go, Anastasia.
I'm just going to quickly put a link in that responds to Anastasia's question from the European Union, just for information.
Yeah, and thank you, Anastasia, for the exotic background music. That was really appreciated. Thank you. And Puri, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoyed your sharing, Anastasia and everyone else. We're from room 3, just reporting back for Patty, Martina, and Unisas, and myself and Amy. So in our group, we were talking about how facilitation mainly comes from our closest circle, whether it is our community or families or those who comes to us with, some kind of questions or troubles. So we discovered that it's a chance or opportunity for us to actually develop lifelong learning capabilities and interests as well. And also when we apply it in real life challenges, it's actually just helping those who come to us, whether it's, family, community, or in terms of communication or tackling real life problems. There is one, I guess, sentence that I would like to share that would sum up, will try to sum up what happened in our room. It's actually creating empathic space that really holds a space of curiosity and keep finding and questions and communicate or bridging what's not been said that needs to be said. So I think also creating a space that we would like also to be part of. There is that one story that's really vivid, and I think I would like to invite Amy, if you'd like to share with the rest of us. I think it's really worthwhile because it's the event has been 30 years, right? But you still present it and share it with us with such a profound moment. So if you can, you'd like to share, thank you so much.
Amy, can you do it as a 60-second story?
Yeah, I understand. Okay,
Thanks.
so one of the companies that was undergoing a lot of problems during the recession, the MD asked all the employees to come together, and instead of lecturing everyone, he asked questions. How long have you been working here? Do you want to stay together? You know, anybody wants to be retrenched? You know, they put them into small groups, and they came up with the plan of how to go forward, like work at night, open all the windows, no aircon, you save more money, and everyone cut 50% of your pay, and the MD only gets 10% of his pay. Oh yeah, they sent back all the company cars, and the tea lady asked to cut her pay as well. She said, I'm part of the team. If you don't cut my pay, I'm not part of the team. So they cut her only $10. And so the power of facilitation to get everyone to express how they felt. Okay.
Thanks, Amy. Wonderful. Thank you. And what we'll do is, Padma, I'm sorry, this will be the last story that we'll have from the groups, Star and members of that team. If you could just share your thoughts in the chat box. Thank you. Padma.
So I'm sorry to take away the opportunity from the discussion rooms. In fact, I joined late, so I'm happy to yield my position to Star and put my comments in chat if it need be, because I'm just going to share my personal story, not from a discussion room. So I leave it to you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's awesome, Padma. So thank you. That was really lovely. So Star, you've got a reprieve.
Yeah, thank you very much, Padma. Well, I'd like to share from my group. We have Nural, Dr. Lata, Mbak Retno, and also Yash. So as a short summary, it is a story about a father helping her daughter to choose and decide which university to go with all the consideration of the family condition. So two stories about how people come and touch them in a very uncomfortable way, in a very uncomfortable moment, but they come and make it much easier for them to, when they have to enter a new society. And even for Yash, when he had to move to another country with a very different language. And it makes it much easier from the heart level, and also it helped them to move easier to the next journey of their life in that society and that country. Also in a story from a relief camp, where two people can inspire the whole people that was stuck in what to do. So from all of the story, what I can one line that I can share is that the key from those story is a dialogue, and the dialogue started from positivity from the people who started the conversation, the dialogue, and it touched people's heart, and it can also influence the community. Like from my story, it influenced the university I went to. But one point that I can take as a lesson learned is that it takes a person to start it. It takes a person to start it and make a change. I hope he can conclude the story. I saw Yash raise his hands, but we don't have time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Star. And it's really a beautiful segue into our next part of this workshop. And there was so much to draw from. There was so many facilitative qualities around, diversity, around inclusion, about having an ear for the team, around a sense of that people feel valued, helping people feel helped, holding space, that concept of bridging what is not being said, touching hearts, dialogue. It's amazing, all of the different things. And we're going to now share with you what are some of the insights that we've got from all of the stories that we've heard, and how that's been helpful to us, and hopefully will be helpful to you. So over to you, Kavi. And
Thank
anything
you,
else
Stephen.
that you saw from those stories?
Yeah, fantastic stories. And as I kept hearing the stories, we could so relate to what we've heard before in putting the book together. And there are three central elements that I'm going to share with you. And when we started writing this chapter, we just wanted to go with far more than our own biases and our own understanding of things. So what we did was we went around talking to people. We sat with people who we thought were slightly better off in holding diverse groups together, taking them forward. We sat with village elders, we sat with electricians and plumbers, and we sat with a wide array of people and saw them at work, and then deciphered a few things. So we went slightly the researchish way. And after that, when we started piecing together, there are three different things that we specifically saw. And we saw it common in people who are extremely facilitative. And Anastasia, for your question about if everybody is a facilitator, then what am I going to do? Well, I'll come to that in just a bit, just in just a bit. But the more important thing, as a foundation, if somebody is facilitative, what are some of the things that they bring to fore? Is what we wanted to unravel, and that's what we're going to share with you. We found quite a bit, but I'm just going to restrict it to just three elements, and I'm going to share that with you so that we're kind of working together on that. Now, the three prisms. So this is about living a facilitative life. There are three prisms to this. Number one, people who are facilitative. If you have a strong facilitative bone, or the facilitative bone that we need to hone even better than wherever we are, is the first premise that other people are resourceful. Everybody is resourceful. Now, ordinary people that we dealt with, the better ones, the better facilitative ones, people who kind of have evolved their facilitative bone, they just entered conversations with a belief that everybody here can solve this problem. Now, when you enter conversations with, look, I mean, you are good enough, there is some kind of a magic that comes up. In ordinary lives, it is not sophisticated, educated. I'm not by any means saying education brings automatic sophistication. Sometimes it's to the contrary, but that we'll keep it aside for another time. The belief that people are resourceful is a great place to start, and that's your Prism 1. Now, what's your Prism 2? Now, this is Prism 2, and we call it tightly and lightly, which is when you bring a facilitative bone to work, you take yourself, the people who we saw at work took themselves or put themselves, treated themselves and their views lightly, but held the outcomes that the group was going towards very tightly. Now, they were not interested in saying, this is how you should do, because I am saying so. I am the big man here. No. They held themselves very, very lightly. They kept their views very light, but they kept the focus on where the group must go to very tight. And this is a formula that we wanted to keep and remind you. And this is what we've written in the book as well. This is lightly and tightly, which is to keep ourselves in this being of facilitative, in the mode of being facilitative, to treat ourselves very light. At the same time, hold outcomes very tight. We're focused on the outcome, going towards the outcome. And one interesting facet that we saw amongst facilitators are able to hold it together, better facilitator people have a lot of self-deprecation as well. People are able to joke about themselves, are able to say a couple of things about themselves and pull themselves down. That it takes quite a bit to do that, and it takes quite a bit to be able to pull off something like that. But anyway, so lightly and tightly, that's Prism 2 for you. And here is Prism 3, and this is the last one for you. There is no immediate specific reward for them as they got into it. Now this requires some nuance here, and I would like to talk about it for just a minute more. The nuance is this: they may be in a profession. Now there is a building contractor. Now he has to distribute work to people. Ultimately, it's a profit-making business for him, but he is facilitative in his role. But he is facilitative in allocating businesses, allocating tasks to people. Now, does the overall outcome bring him money and revenue? Yes. But does this immediate act of facilitating, does it yield any benefits to him, any material benefits to him? Not as much. He's more interested in, hey, let's keep it going. Let's move it. Let's keep it going. Let's keep moving forward. The whole thing, therefore, becomes, it's more important for us to keep going forward. It's more important for us to keep going towards outcomes. So they're not too concerned about, look, this is more immediately rewarding for me. Now, these are 3 prisms that I would like, and all the things that you spoke of, the grandfather, the boss, the trainer, the manager that Chan had spoken about, and everybody else. And I love the space around, it takes a person to start. You put everything under this prism, and you will see these things work, or at least we think it will work. The first prism is the person believes that the other person is resourceful. Number 1. Number 2 is this, that you lead. It's not about me, but it's about all of us moving towards a collective outcomes, lightly and tightly. And number 3, it's not about me again. I mean, I'm not interested. I'm not going after my material reward immediately, but I'm just interested in moving this forward. So it is about humanity. Yes, Anastasia, it is about humanity, but having that and bringing what's there about humanity in us into our work is what counts. And that perhaps is an area where we can do better. We become so focused on something very specific to a tool, or we become so focused on a method, like what Stephen was sharing during the break. One of our first workshops was called "The Real Tool is You." The real tool is not a tool. The real tool is you, the facilitator. So very similarly, what we are saying here is the tool is us. If we harness that bone within us of being facilitative, of considering the other person to be more resourceful, taking us lightly but holding outcomes tightly, and entering conversations with a mindset of service, that automatically means we are harnessing the bones of facilitation. This is what we found, not in facilitators, but in ordinary people who were leading a very facilitative life. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I just want to, Stephen, what are your comments now? I've spoken for far too long.
Yeah, it's we've found these 3 prisms really useful, and every time we have a conversation, as a result of the conversation and what people think about these prisms, we get a new depth of understanding. And what we were thinking, Kavi, do you think we'll still go into some quick breakout rooms for everybody to explore these 3 prisms?
Sure.
Okay, great. So you've heard the prisms, and now's an opportunity for you to explore and just think about these prisms and their potential for you in your own lives. And just whilst you're doing that, and have a discussion about what are these things that you're going to take away with you to have a deeper look at when you go back, and what are 1 or 2 things from these that you're going to experiment with, but just keeping that in the back of your mind. But we can break you up into groups, And I'm just going to put those, just a brief of those three things that Kavi, the three prisms, is to have a discussion about those prisms in your group. What are the implications for them? Where have you seen them practice? Where are they a truth for you? And how you might experiment with them and apply them in your own personal lives. Anything to add there, Kavi? You're on
Sorry, yeah, I think that's comprehensive. I think we'll keep it tight and light, and move it forward. Keep it a 10 minute conversation, very quick, and just hear each other out. And
yep, see you in 10 months. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back. And one of the things that we find when we're working with stories is that stories trigger stories. When we listen to somebody else's stories, it triggers a story within me often that I'd forgotten about, or it helps me to think about something that's connected to the subject matter. So we're really looking forward to hearing what your conversations in those groups were. Who'd like to start?
Yeah, so Stephen and Kavi, I would like to start here. The three prisms that you presented, probably I got in late, so I don't have the gist of what do you mean by lightly and tightly. Especially on the tightly part, if you can share more. We had some discussions in the room, and then I held a different view on tightly, and I'll share that later on. But first, I would like to understand, your perspective on that.
sure. So lightly is about taking oneself and one's views lightly. Tightly is about very committed to where a possible outcomes for the better for the group are. Now, not necessarily on, if I am the facilitator, not necessarily on my vision for where the group must go to, but it's more towards where the group is the group moving forward collectively. That's the tightly. The tightly is about moving forward, not getting stuck, not remaining in a cesspool of conversations. That is tightly. Is it moving forward? That's the focus. The tightly can be mistaken for my outcome that I desire that this group must go to. It's not that tightly. It's more about, is the group moving forward? That's the outcome that we were speaking about.
Thank you. That's what I was also thinking. And I guess now I don't need to discuss with the group or, ask them.
Great, thank you. Danny, looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, I hope I can represent the group. There were 6 of us. There was Patty, Adi, Padma Kumar, Anshul, and I think Retno left the group, and myself. I think the 3 prisms were, we can understand the concepts, but sometimes it's challenging. How do we apply these 3 prisms? Number one is pretty much easy, believing that people are resourceful, but doing the tightly and lightly thing can be a challenge, and also showing up without a specific immediate reward. That is, it's a challenge when participants want something tangible. They want something. They want something instant, something that they can take away after the let's say the training session or whatever facilitation you're doing. I don't know if anybody else from the group wants to add something.
Thanks, Danny. And what about anybody in the other group? Any comments about your conversation about the 3 prisms?
Kylie.
If I may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Go, Lydia.
Okay,
Please.
okay. Where are we from? Are we from group 6, Kylie? No, okay, but never mind. In my group, there is Vinti, Ami, Genesis, and Eileen, and myself. Most of all, find that this resonates us. Both Genesis and I maybe started from as being a coach, which that's a miniature of facilitating individual, bringing to the group. We believe in our belief, and we practice that everyone are resourceful because they're just having an adult with lifespan of experience, knowledge, skills, and that can really like completing one another. Therefore, we believe that we can apply that. The intention that we are there to facilitate because everyone having uniqueness, and we all together can like go into directions, making decisions, whatever we want to be as a group or as a team, and we provide space, lightly giving space for everyone having the same their thoughts. But of course, at the end, we have to lock it tightly. Where are we going? What decision we want to make as a group to make our destiny as a group? So intentionally as facilitator, we don't want to be recognized because we step out, we step back after the group is being able to decide themselves. That's what we call, we don't really want to have immediate recognitions. The universe can give us the recognitions. That's what Junisa said and Eileen, because it's not really like monetary maybe during that time, but the intention is to make the group capable of doing and making decisions for their life, for destiny. We will get paid in another form. So that's, I think, the summary from our discussion in our room. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. You've left me with a nice imagery of the universe patting us all on the back. It's very sweet. Thank you. Is there anybody else with their hands up that's keen to share about their conversation in their group? Oh, who was the other person that just last time? I missed that.
Yeah,
ready?
I just wanted to bring up one particular point. You know, this is an interplay between 2 and 3. 2 says that we hold ourselves lightly, but we want to be right about ensuring outcome, as in not necessarily our outcome, but moving forward, as Kavi explained nicely. And the third one says showing up without specific immediate reward. So when you show up without specific immediate reward, even the expectation that I want the session to move forward, or I want to bring in the processes in a proper fashion, or I want a successful facilitated session in the true sense of the term, isn't that by itself a reward? Isn't that a reward that a facilitator would look for? That subtle influence that he has brought in, not necessarily in the content, but more in the process and in the facilitation itself. Isn't that by itself a reward that a facilitator would look for? Just wanted a thought.
Sure. Can I intervene, Stephen? Can I just, because a very interesting point. Now, and also the earlier point as well about participants want something tangible. Now, what are we talking about? We are not talking about facilitators in groups. We are talking about facilitation as a way of life. Now, there is a difference there. Now, in life, the moment I go in and say, because of me, I am going to facilitate this, and because of me, all of you would move forward. And that's a reward for me. You're absolutely right. The moment people realize that I'm doing this because I get a kick out of it, it's not going to be that facilitative for the group. When people realize that this is happening because we are all in it together, and even if it's going to be an intangible reward that somebody is getting out of it, he or she is not doing that because that reward is for me. Padmakar, your question is bang on. And is that not enough reward? Yes, that is reward enough, and that is rewarding enough. But remember, this is not about groups in a session. This is about life. The people that we spoke about earlier, the grandfather, the boss, the trainer, these people are doing this not because is the grandfather saying, I will teach you, is the father teaching the daughter? Many examples came here. Is he teaching it because as a father I want to do this to you? No, I just do it because this is the relationship. This is what I need to do. That is life. And that's the distinct that we want to bring, that you do it because you ought to do it. That's all. Not because you're present and you have the reward or the position to do it. So that's a subtle nuance, and you brought it out very nicely as well. I'll just take up answering to Anastasia's earlier question as well, which was about if all of us are facilitators, and what are we? Right? All of us have a facilitative bone, and as facilitators, if we understand how to play that bone well, our profession as facilitators gets far more better. That's the moot point that we are making. And sometimes in the pursuit of the craft, we miss the life behind the craft. That's the central hypothesis that we want to build. The life behind the craft is something that exists in us. The craft is something that we get better at. We get to stand before groups of people. The craft is something that we can learn. There is something more inherent in us which we'll need to tap into. Those elements of resourcefulness, those elements of believing that everybody is resourceful by themselves, those elements need to be tapped in. That's more important. Craft we'll learn. There's no problem. All of us will get better at craft. If you so choose, each one of you can become CPF, double CPF, triple CPF, whatever there is, and more, if you choose to become. That's not a problem. What is lacking here and what is important for us is to be able to go deeper and take that facilitative bone inside us and bring that to fore. That changes the craft. That takes the craft to a different level. Without harnessing that craft, just the skill alone sometimes makes us machine-like in application of facilitation. That is jarring. That's the moot point that we'd like to submit before you for you to consider. Yes, Stephen. I think David has a point. I think.
Yes, he has, and we'll just go to you in a minute, Kavi. And just one thing I wanted to draw out is our intention today was to start the conversation, not to finish it. And it's very much, as you've seen, just through that conversation that we've had about those three prisms, we have a framework that we use a lot when we're working with values, is when we have shared meaning around the word or around the prisms, then we have shared understanding. And when we have shared understanding, we can have shared using. What we've done today is just started that conversation for you. We invite you to continue that conversation amongst yourselves, amongst your little groups, come together with people that you've met today and further that understanding around those prisms. David, we're on the homeward run, so this will be the last one. Thank you.
Just a quick point there. It was Malin and Trevor Durnford, your co-authors in the book. They made a very interesting point about the whole idea of we as facilitators, and it's our profession, etc. I think what the point they made, I think it's worth considering, is that the facilitation becomes more powerful when we give it away. So I think it's risky to see us only as those who kind of have the knowledge to facilitate. We should be helping, encouraging, and cultivating this desire to facilitate and helping people recognize that they are facilitated, because it's at that point that the whole work of facilitation becomes more powerful. And I think in my own personal ambition, that's where I want to bring facilitation, is make it more powerful around the world, or at least around me. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
David.
you, David. I think that is the point. It is in people. We just need to free it up. And how do we free it up without keeping it locked in? You don't even have to give it away. We just need to tap in, and just adding on to what David's saying, you just need to tap in and help people see it in all its most powerful form.
Thank you. Right, so we're just in the homeward run, and we're going to ask you just some really quick reflective questions. We're going to head over to Menti. Just as a way of you seeing what everybody else's thoughts about how they might be apply and experiment with this. And I'll throw that over to Kavi. We've put a link in the chat box with respect to a link to the book, a link to our chapter. If you go to that link, you'll also find all of the chapters. You can read them individually, or you can download the book in its entirety. So over to you, Kavi.
Yes, and there's just two questions for you on Menti. I hope I'm getting it right. Okay, everyone in the meeting. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so that's the Menti to go to in case you need. So the two questions. One question is about what aspect you want to go back and look at, and there's another question as to what experiment do you want to start. Just these two questions, so that when we get everybody's answers to it, even if somebody is not thinking about something specific, your answer might trigger somebody to think about something more specific. So we'd encourage you to go right in as to what's one aspect from whatever we've discussed, whatever any of us have shared today that you want to go back and tackle with. Okay, so very nice.
Follow these prisms seriously. Seriously?
Yes, seriously. Okay, so we've got one more question for you, and that question is about, okay, so if this is what you want to do, so what's the next one is, what is one experiment that you would like to start? This question is special because we really want to know what's something that you want to go back and do. What's one thing that you'd want to go back and try doing? This we'd request you to think for a minute and put it down. What can you do? Remember, it's an experiment.
I'm really looking forward to this. This is the bit I really love, is to see what's been stimulated in you and what you're thinking. I know that in IAF we love to finish on time, and we're almost on closing time, but we promise we'll just take about 2 or 3 more minutes. So as May said,
fascinating answers coming your way.
Wonderful. And whilst that's happening, if you want to reach out to myself or Kavi, I'm just putting up our LinkedIn details, and we're very happy for you to reach out and to continue the conversation.
Some fascinating stuff coming out here, which is
What we'll do is that we'll consolidate this and we'll give it to May. So when she sends out the link to the YouTube, this is really important that you have this to just mull over and think about and take inspiration from it.
fantastic.
Wow. So, Stephen and Kavi, okay, everyone, let's give a big round of applause. This is what I did for Stephen and Kavi. Amazing. Thank you so much. Great session. Learn a lot, and it's really about applying it into our life. And for all of you who have attended this session, you're the one that making this very lively as well. So like what I put in the chat function, I will send to you later on the link to the YouTube so you can share it, and also the PDF on the Mentimeter, right? So if it's okay with you, I would like to take a group picture. So let me do this first.
As the pictures happening, David, I see your hand raised.
Oh, pardon, no, sorry. Let me take that down.
Okay, all right. So let me put to the gallery view. And you never know where you are, so let's just give your best one.
Just a minute. I need to part my hair properly.
Okay, great. So everyone looking great. 1, 2, 3. It's the first screen, and then
point to the people down below.
Yeah, and interesting, I cannot move to the other screen, but it's okay, right? So let's try again. 1.
Stephen and Kavi, you're laying down, sleeping posture. That's not possible on Zoom.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
And we really encourage you, if you haven't downloaded the
session
book,
as usual.
Yeah, thank you so much. Wonderful session, taking away a lot of learning from here.
Great, really nice.
Okay, bye-bye.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Stay healthy. Be happy.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.